Okay, so for today's 13 projects for Halloween, I show you the steps to put together a little, I think this ends up, yeah, it's like a 10.5 inch stuffed pillow. Yeah, I've been in a bit of a rut, creative rut. I've done a couple projects and they just haven't been video slash post worthy. So I was hoping that maybe changing substrate up a little bit will get me out of this rut. So yeah, we're gonna do this pillow. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining me. So for this 13 projects of Halloween, I'm going to start out by die cutting using the pumpkin patch Sizzix steel rule die, and I cut it using the Holtz Eclectic Elements Materialize, and I've got ZigZag and then Pinstripe, and I've just cut these out. Now normally I was sent a bunch of ThermoWeb stuff, and so normally with an applique you'd want to apply these first, but I've decided to leave them without the bond on there first, because I like when there's a really raveled edge. So like where all these strings, you know, where I can pull it and it'll make it a real rustic fringy edge. So I'm going to take and sew these onto, this is just some scrap flannel. So I'm going to sew them onto here and I'll be right back. Okay, so there we go. I did on the black, after I added the black flannel, I did put, you know, followed the directions and used this heavy-duty heat bond. So this one's cut out, and you know, and I frayed this some, and that's easy enough. But I really like this because, you know, if you've got some stitching that, you know, okay, isn't perfect, because, you know, I'm not a good appliquer, and I could admit that, but the fraying just kind of covers that up. So here's a good, you know, this one's pretty much done and ready to be layered, but just wanted to show you, it's, you know, there's nothing special about this. I'm just cutting freehand and just leaving, you know, a nice, I don't know, what is that, 1/16 of an inch or so, just enough to, you know, give it a bit of a shadow. And I also wanted to share that, you know, if you'd prefer to see these, you know, this step by step in picture and written form, I did something like this last year, and it's on my blog, which is dabbledoday.com. I'm really in a creative rut right now. The last 3 projects I've done, I just didn't feel were, you know, were worthy. They just, I don't know, they just weren't happening for me. So I thought, well, you know what? Why don't I go back and revisit an old project that I liked? And I'm sure, you know, that usually helps kick me back into a creative mode. So yep, now I'm just going to go through, and, you know, you just basically, what you want to happen is the little threads in there to come off, or, you know, to remove those, then that way you get a nice frayed edge. You can also use tools like anything that you have that is, you know, kind of stiff and can go in there and gently just get something to guide and move those along like that. And if they're long ones and you want to remove them, by all means cut them. You know, it's kind of, Or maybe, you know, if you don't like this look and you would prefer it not, you know, not to be frayed like this, you can always just use the heat bond directly, you know, put it onto your fabric first, run it through the steel roll die, and then it'll be a real, you know, edge where this fraying won't happen. So there's other options depending on the style and the look that you like. And so just going through here like this. Okay, I'm liking that. Okay, there they both are. And let's see. I'm thinking, let's see how this will look against Manor. This is the print called Manor. That's kind of busy. But I think that would be a fun print. The black's helping it stand out a little bit. Let me grab some of the others and play around with some kind of layout. Maybe I want, let's see, we've got here, this is Harlequin. Oh, that's upside down. Maybe I like Harlequin. Oh, that's kind of fun too. Because I think just like I did with the last year's pillow, we are going to stamp a word and place it on here, and just to, I don't know, just customize it. I want to show you how to do that. So, I don't know. I'm going to play around and I'll be back with the layout I decide on, and then I'm going to show you how we stamp on some fabric. Okay, so I've cut the background fabric to a squared 10.5 inch block, and I decided I really liked this Apothecary because it kind of grounds, it really kind of grounds the pumpkin. So what I did was I didn't want to stitch along here to have a finished edge, so I just ironed about 1/4 inch, and I am going to use some of this Fabric Fuse by ThermoWeb. It's a quick bond permanent, and it's not open yet. It was part of my sample box. So let's just get it open. Here we go. And so I'm just going to apply a thin line here, and we're going to set this aside. It's a nice thin line. Same here, and it says to let it dry for about 4 hours. So while this is drying, well, that was super easy, wasn't it? Okay, there we go. So while this is set aside drying, I found some, it's like a muslin fabric, any color or anything will do that you want. But I have some of these cling foam stamps, which I love to use with acrylic paints. And this set happens to be type lower. And so I wanted my stamp platform, not only because just in case it doesn't stamp like I want, but I was also able to line up using the grid. And worked out really well because the 0 worked as a capital O. So I'm just going to go with the word October, and I like that. And I'm going to go with an orange, so I'm going to use my spiced marmalade. And apply a little bit onto foam. Let's see, what do I got here? Let's get a new one. So I'm just going to put a little bit down here. Trying to get a nice even, and then apply it right to the stamp. Oops, I got one of the magnets in the way. Okay, I did not have enough on there. So, I think maybe this foam is sucking up too much. My R doesn't want to stick. So let's just do it this way, and then I will clean this back in a second. Okay. I'm loving that, but definitely need one more stamp. That's what's great about the stamp platform. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to leave it just like it is, let it dry a little bit, soak it in, and then, I don't know, decide if I maybe want one more stamp, or maybe maybe we'll add some highlight in there. So let's give it a couple minutes to dry. Okay, yep, so it's pretty dry, and I decided it just needs another color. So I've got some Walnut Stain Distress Paint, and I'm just going to kind of focus more on the outside using a brush this time so I can control more of the paint. And just kind of really not being too fussy, but just staying to the one side of the stamp. Let's see how this is. Yeah, I like that. See, this O needs a little bit more, maybe a little bit more from the T. Now I'm kind of cheating here because technically the stamp platform is for rubber stamps, but this is giving me enough of an outline, and I think it's working great. Maybe freehand, add a little bit more maybe where I think it might need it. Okay. So I think while it's on here, one last color, we're just going to add a little bit of highlight. Here's my antique linen. And we're going to go on the opposite side. I don't want to go too heavy with this because I don't want it to blend into the background. So let's give this a go. Yep, I did it. See right there? You can see that. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry and then we'll be back. Okay, so this is dry, and I think how this is going to, I think we'll have this like this, and then cut this down and have it something like this. So the next step for me is I'm just going to mark. This is just a chalk pencil. I'm just going to kind of mark here where that, where the base of the pumpkins are going to go. And I'm going to add some stitching just here to kind of appear as a shadow. So I'm just going to go back over to my machine and just kind of randomly go back and forth with some straight stitch, maybe a little bit of zigzag. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got the stitching done, and I decided to add some batting. I didn't go all the way to the edge because I like to do cording. So what the batting I used was just, I don't know, some of this. I'm not I've never been taught for quilting, so I don't know how good this stuff is, but I got it for 99 cents from the thrift store. So that's been sitting in my stash, so I decided to use it. And just to hold it in place once it gets stuffed and stuff, I just went through with the sewing machine and decided to highlight this row of 3. So as you can see, I just, stitched it with the straight stitch, set with like the widest, stitch. I think it was a 4 for me. But so they're just a really widely spaced stitch, and then just highlighted a couple over here. And now when I did stitch this, it's a little wonky. My tension wasn't set right, and but we're gonna fix that. This is gonna go about here, and I'm going to glue it down with some of the Quick Bond. Since I have it, and I decided I didn't want to, have that stitch here because I wanted this stitching just to stand out a little bit more. So I'm just gonna add some of this down. And this is more of a decorative pillow, so I'm not so concerned about whether or not, how much use this is actually going to get. Because do I really think somebody's going to lay down on the couch and, have their head on this pillow? No. So I'm going to go about here, kind of making sure it's lined up with the rest of it, and I like that. Oh, Oh, this stuff grabs great. Oh my, look at, so look how nicely that just smoothed that right out. Let's add just a little bit more here where it's crinkling a little bit. And I know I've said this already, but you know, I'm self-taught, so I'm sure that there's tons of other ways to do this. This is just how I'm choosing to do this. So I like that. And then now let's remove this backing, and we are going to now glue this down. So I kind of, well, iron it down because we've got the heat bond. So I like this one here. And then we'll do the same with this one. Remove this backing, following the directions that are on the package. Like that. And so we'll get these ironed down. I like that one there. Oop. Now I got to remember I'm going to be stitching this with piping. So this is going to come in at least a 1/2 inch. So I'm not going to want that pumpkin that close to the edge. So I'm going to move them over a little bit. Like so. Yep. And then that's about the place that I will iron these down. And then I'm also going to cut this down and then add just a fancy, I'm going to go a little fancier with the stitch on this, but we'll be back when this is all sewn together. Okay, so I've squared up my piece of Manor. You know, just squared it up, so now that with the wrong sides or the right sides together. So now instead of doing piping, I decided I wanted to soften it up a little bit. So in my stash, because again, huge collector of trims, and I found this orange and black. I don't know, they're pretty vintage, so they don't have any, I don't have any makers on them, but I'm just going to take and sandwich this between the two, so then that way when I flip them right side out, they're, you know, this is going to just finish it off. And so the sandwich will be the right sides together, and then lining these up, and I want the orange facing the front, so it's actually going to go this way, and I'll just put this in between the two like so. So it's a sandwich like that. So then that way when we turn them right side out, they will look like that. So I'm going to sew this together and we'll be right back, and then we're just going to stuff it and then it is done. And really it's just thinking of, you know, your fabric as paper and layering it up the same way. So yeah, let me do that and we'll get back. I'll get back in a minute and we'll be stuffing. Okay, so here it is all stitched. Nothing fancy. Corners, I didn't, you know, I just kind of rounded it a little, as you can see here. And I'm just cutting off some of this excess, so it won't be so bulky when we turn it right side out. And let's see the reveal. Isn't that just the cutest? Oh my. I'm so happy that I ended up going with this trim instead of piping. I just think it adds just a little bit of femininity to it, if that's a word. But so now we'll just take and stuff. What do I have here? I don't know, just classic. Let's see here, classic fiber fill, and we'll just stuff it. There we go. Okay. Okay, so you get the picture. So just going to keep stuffing it, and then here we'll just tuck these raw edges in like that, and then just extend, you know, just extend and sandwich that into the finished, and then I'll just hand stitch that, but you get the idea. So there you go. I'm going to do some close-ups, but that's it. And yeah, we've got a really nice, cute, decorative pillow now. And, you know, really just tackle it as if, you know, your fabric is paper, and layer it up as you do. I mean, who says you can't? Who says it's all got to be, you know, blocks and quilting and, you know, just a solid piece. So have fun.